Ryan Sage, Formula Drift president and co-founder. Love you, brother.
Today is a pretty special day. We've got two awesome announcements. We are inducting for the very first time the first ever non-driver to the Hall of Fame. Go to the 2025 Formula Drift Hall of Fame inductee, Larry Chen. Irwindale was our place. It was our house. And sadly, that house is now gone.
Long Beach, are you ready to let everybody know where round 8 of the 2025 Formula Drift Championship is? Are you ready?
Well, well, well. If you're just tuning in and you're wondering what the hell was that, let us welcome you to the first episode of the PASMAG 365 Smoke Signals podcast with our drift editor, special guest, Kevin Darwish. I say special guest like it's not his actual podcast. This is the first of our collaborative efforts, so welcome, man.
Thank you for having me with open arms.
Anytime, man, anytime. So we're going to have a little bit of a drift-centric episode today, as you guys are probably aware. For anyone watching, Tuner Battlegrounds is over. It has ended. And to kick that off, we are bringing in Kevin and some awesome FD content, as well as some event stuff. You probably already know, due to the lifetime of PASMAG working with FD, we do FD's official program every year. You've probably seen it a bunch of times. And then we also talk to our friends at FD to see what's going on. So today we've got our friend Ryan Sage, co-founder, president, man with the plan, man behind the microphone. But first of all, if you don't know Kevin, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been in the drift world for a long time. First saw drifting at SEMA. I think it was like 05, 06.
Wow.
It was, and it was D1. Team Orange was there, and Reese Millen, and as of there, I was hooked.
It just takes one, right?
Oh, yeah. I was hooked, and then went home to discover DMCC, and then Formula D, followed some drivers as spotter with Dave Briggs and Mira Ovcharik, and then I started competing, and now I am here with PASMAG, covering all the FD events, pretty much all drifting all across North America.
In the rare in-between, both competitor and media personality. That's a rare breed, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess it gives like a different insight to sound. There you go.
Oh, hell yeah.
There you go.
You sound good.
It's a lot better right now.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess it gives it like a bit of a different insight to, being able to be a driver and cover media for drifting.
For sure. You kind of see it from the inside.
Yeah.
That's
and
really
I
cool.
sort of, I know what being like drivers go through, like stress-wise and everything, so I could see it a different way, I guess.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Look at it at a better angle.
Yeah.
Speaking of seeing things from the inside.
Where are you going with this?
What are we talking about?
Do we hop straight into our special guest? Do we want to talk about the FD? Oh, let's talk about that, of course.
Fan guide. It's over 10
like,
years, right?
Yeah, like I mentioned at the beginning, we've been doing it for longer than I've even been here. So I think we're like 12 straight. It's weird because there's missing years, COVID year, and things like that. But this has been one of the coolest projects every year at PASMAG. A lot of you probably know it's not just the PASMAG magazines. There's all these cool special projects, and the cover of this latest year, it looks so badass.
Yeah, this is a nice sneak preview of what you got to see.
So at every Formula Drift event, you can pick up one of these. Hey, look, they talk about the podcast in it. That's great. And it's got all sorts of cool FD stuff, and as well, everybody's favorite, the driver profiles. So you can see what your favorite driver is representing that year, what they are driving, what the car looks like, and all sorts of stuff like that. Is there anything I'm missing about the FD program?
I find it cool because all I can think, when you get to the track, you walk into the track, there's always the boxes of the fan guides, and people are just attacking them, grabbing a couple of them and everything. That's all, yeah.
I definitely get that.
Yeah. So I guess we could jump right into presenting our guest for the episode.
Yeah, we've got a little pre-roll, so some of you in the audience that maybe you missed FD this past weekend and all the exciting announcements and other things that happened, we can sum that up for you. If Design wants to hit that before we talk to Ryan.
Or not.
Bum, bum, bum.
No?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
We're getting the
We're getting the keep
continue
it
on.
moving thing.
I guess we could introduce,
Yeah.
as you said, the co-founder and president of Formula Drift.
We've got Ryan Sage with us. And just to recap a little of this past weekend, if you missed it, not only did we get an announcement on the 8th round, which has kind of been up in the air, a mystery for a lot of people, we also got the awesome announcement that our good friend Larry Chen is the first non-drifter inducted into the Formula Drift Hall of Fame. That's a heartwarming moment.
Yeah.
All in all, looked like a fun time. Ryan, how you doing, man? It's good to have you here.
I'm getting back to normal. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Talk a little bit about this opening event. Obviously, it's a big deal every year, and it looks like it gets bigger and bigger every year. You spent a bit of time at the podium and had some special moments there. Anything stand out as like a wow moment from this past weekend?
Yeah, I mean, when you kick off the season, there's always and even preseason, because you kind of sense what the vibe is going to be, and you're coming off of silly season. I still kind of have this lurking belief in the back of my head of like, well, what is this year going to entail? And maybe that's a little bit of just being traumatized from COVID and things like that. So, we kind of get a sense of what at least the first event is going to look like. But until you get there and do it, you don't really know. It was certainly, I think the consensus amongst my internal staff was it was one of the hardest events that we've ever done, but it was hard in the sense that everybody was doing a lot more than they usually did and trying to do it a lot cleaner. And so, what came out of that is I think everybody felt really fulfilled afterwards. So there was a lot of hard work, but it was super fulfilling. And it all kind of culminated yesterday, actually, on Monday mornings on 6 a.m. following the event. There's the first meeting for the lead up to the Long Beach Grand Prix, and it's a minute-by-minute meeting. And it kind of sucks for some of the staff. They have to do the whole weekend thing and load out on Sunday and then, be at this meeting in Long Beach at 6 a.m. But they opened the meeting by kind of talking, and it's like, it's a bunch of city people, city manager, mayor's office, Long Beach Grand Prix, police, PD, police, fire, et cetera, et cetera. And they opened the meeting, saying, hey, they wanted to talk about the event this past weekend, how great it was, da-da-da-da-da. And then they talked about the announcement, and like 200 people in the room gave a standing ovation.
Whoa.
And so that was super meaningful, because you really don't know how, everybody perceives the event, particularly those people that, believe in the sport and have supported us to the extent that the city has and the Grand Prix has. And so to get that kind of reception was like super humbling.
Hell yeah, dude. That's awesome.
Before we continue, I think we have a little segment we like to have here at Smoke Signals, just to have fun and set the mood. A little bit crazy questions, but let's just go with it. So it's would you rather? And let's start with the first one. So would you rather have to personally judge every single FD battle for an entire season, or announce every event wearing a furry costume?
The latter.
Probably easier.
I mean, I'd rather announce wearing a G-string.
Hey, with some of the rounds with the heat, it's probably better in a G-string than a furry costume.
Yeah,
I
we
also
gotta get
don't
that
envy these judges.
Yeah.
The Borat swimsuit.
By far and away the worst job you could ever even imagine in this sport, let alone even outside of it.
Yeah. All right. Number 2. Would you rather only be able to speak in rhymes on event days, or have to mime everything you say during live broadcasts?
Rhymes would be cool, because at least I have something that would, maybe fascinate people. Miming, I think, would just make them upset.
More of a challenge,
The
too, to
first
rhyme.
FD freestyle coming to you live.
All right. Would you rather mic yourself up for a full FD weekend with zero filter, live to the crowd, or have your internal thoughts turned into live commentary by an AI voiceover?
Okay, if the AI voiceover was known to be my internal thoughts, I would ask where the distribution point was. If both were going to the same endpoint, I would have to do what I was saying being sent out, because at least I would have some control over that. Inside my brain, oftentimes, as I'm sure everybody experiences this, but I don't really know what's going to pop in there, and so what might come out would be pretty devastating.
I would never want that. That would be the worst thing in the world.
Terrifying.
All right, this one's getting pretty fun. So, would you rather let fans vote in real time to decide the winner of every tandem battle, or spin a giant wheel mid-battle to apply random challenges like no e-brake or reverse entry only?
I would rather have the fans vote, so long as they were in its entirety responsible for the result, so that they have nobody else to blame but themselves.
It'd be a good twist.
If there was a random element to it, and then it still had to be judged, that could still be criticized, I imagine. But if I could defer blame onto somebody else, that'd be great.
All right, final one. This one's pretty cool. Would you rather have to introduce every driver in a WWE-style entrance voice with pyrotechnics and all, or be followed by a hype man who narrates your every move all weekend long?
Okay, is this a video podcast or is this audio right now only?
Oh, or video.
Or video.
Okay.
I see some WWE merch.
Yeah. I think I don't have my belt here. I know the answer
Nice.
to that.
Oh, man.
There you go.
Oh, The Rock and Triple H.
That's
Let's go.
hilarious.
Yeah, Andy actually got me a WWE. I don't know if it's a replica, but it's an official belt that they ust. It's a really, because he's like
Unreal.
a collector. Yeah, actually, right over there, I have a game worn Shohei Ohtani jersey too that he gave me. So,
No way.
He's got some good collectibles for sure.
That's wicked.
That's sick.
That would be cool. Every driver has like their own song and everything.
Yeah.
And, that could be cool.
Walkout songs for each driver would be
Yeah.
hard.
You know,
I
we
like
actually
that.
used to do that. We used to do that, well, like way back in the day. Instead of driver intros where they would line up, we did we did kind of that style. But as soon as you kind of got into broadcasting, and you had to license music and things like that, it became difficult.
Oh,
And then I
right.
remember somebody played a sick joke on Reese Millen and played that song from the Land Down Under, the Vegemite song.
Wow.
And so I think that was kind of like, all right, that's the end of that. But we kind of used to do something like that. I really liked it.
I could just see Luke Fink like pulling in, doing like 360 as the song is playing. Oh my god.
It's basically the national anthem down there.
Yeah. All right,
It's
so
fun. I like this.
yeah, on to serious stuff. As we mentioned, round 1 just ended. How is it going into like a season opener? How much preparation comes into it versus like any other round? I don't know, like, is it more work or it's the same as every round?
It's definitely more work in the sense that, the context of, the look and feel of that year from a promotional standpoint, things that we are, changing from a systems perspective, if we are onboarding like new contractors or vendors or something like that, that's always, presents a little bit more of a challenge. When you kind of get going on the tour in the season, it's really just about kind of checking the boxes and making sure you don't screw anything up too bad. I mean, live events always have a certain level of unpredictability to them, but getting things going in the off season and prepping for that is, in one part a function of what do you want to do, and another part of, do you have enough money to do that? So, we are essentially like, trying to go and raise funding from the moment that the season stops, and putting that all together and saying, okay, we can do everything that we did last year plus 10%, or, this didn't work out that well, let's adjust that. But in order to do that, we're going to have to onboard, this new contractor or this new technology, or we're going to have to rewrite something in the rule book. So there's just a lot more work that goes into like trying to correct the things or adjust the things that you think that are, have kind of timed out or that could be refreshed or that maybe even just like around the edges could be adjusted. And we did a little bit of that this year, not as much as we had in the past, but still a good chunk.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of special rounds, round 2 is a joint event with Gridlife.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to shed any details on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of it, if you looked closely, not you guys, but I mean like the general public, I think most of it has kind of more or less been, at least in the public domain to a certain extent. I don't know if it's been saturated yet, but when they announced that there was going to be a combined event, at PRI, and at that point it was mostly just a conceptual, we're doing this, and now it is kind of ironed out a little bit into what series they're going to bring and how much track time they're going to use, and then are they going to bring the drifting component as well, which they are.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of coming together. Now I think we're in the stages of just ironing out the wrinkles around the edges. A lot of the what the concept of the event is going to be is basically there. And for people that are familiar with Road Atlanta, in the past, Road Atlanta is probably a one-of-one unique style type relationship for us and a venue, in the sense that Road Atlanta kind of acts in a traditional way like a track would for a NASCAR race or an IndyCar race, where there's a promoter and a sanctioning body. And so the track acts as kind of the promoter. So it's, it's quote unquote their event. We just happen to be like the primary thing. But we also act as a promoter because, when we started the relationship, it wasn't as if, they were super familiar with like how to reach out to our fan base and stuff like that. And so within the design of that event, they're thinking about how do they maximize the value of the event weekend. And so, on Friday and Saturday, we have a certain time allotment. And within that time allotment, we do X, Y, and Z. Well, when we're not on track or, when we are not necessarily doing things, they've kind of filled that in with other series, to kind of support the event weekend, whether it's been other time attack series or, over the years, it's been everything from like a Porsche Cup to some of the Pano stuff, some local series, and it's all really cool. But there was an opportunity to bring Gridlife in to kind of replace that, and because I think Gridlife has a bit more like relevance to and overlap with our audience, it does allow us to kind of like bring certain aspects of the industry together.
Yep.
And that's pretty much the ultimate goal, is like how do we kind of extend the hand of like, look, we're all buddy here. We kind of have our own little pies. We're not chipping away from each other. We're not cannibalizing each other. And in fact, we can work together and try to like do 1 + 1 = 3. And so that's really where it kind of came from. I mean, the proof will be in the pudding at the end of the day, but so far so good. The team at Gridlife, they're really, really awesome and amazing people. And they've been great to work with. I've known Chris for many, many years. And I know that like his intent and his mindset is in the right place from like a caretaking aspect of the industry, and not just another promoter out trying to make a buck type stuff. So we're really happy with the way that it's going so far, and I'm looking forward to see if it's something that we could do over the long term.
I think it's going to be like for a live spectator, not on the live stream, but being there, being able to see all different types of motorsports makes me think a bit of like, I'm from Montreal, so often I went to F1 in Montreal, and like when you watch F1 on TV, you see the F1 race, but when you're there, you get to see like the Ferrari Cup Challenge and all different series, the Sentra Cup and everything.
Like
so
a festival.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So they're going to be able to see
the FD festival.
Yeah, they're going to be able to see different types of motorsports and racing. So I think it's going to be pretty cool.
Like Ryan said, a lot of overlap already. I think if you were a fan of one, there's a good chance you were a fan of the other. So now you get the best of both worlds, really. You get some nighttime action and your FD stuff as well.
Yeah.
Ryan, I want to rewind just a little bit. You touched on, changing things up year to year, and sometimes something has run its course or something needs to change in the format. Can you speak a bit about the bracket seating versus traditional qualifying for anybody who may not be up to speed?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think there's a certain level of complexity to this question that could take a while to unpack to get it into its like full clarity. But the short of it is that we are now a 2-series championship, and with that presents challenges on what venues we can go to and how many competitors we can fit. And so whenever we look at a venue or whenever we look at formats, we kind of, even if it's an individual pro only round, that format should be, for educational purposes and also simplicity's sake and carryover, consistent when we do a combined weekend. And so as both series have expanded and gone from like, say, 32 sub in both series with Pro 2 that then turned into Pro Spec, going from like 16 to 24 to 32. And now it's the bigger series from a competitor's perspective, like going up to 48 last year.
So crazy.
And that being based off of our relationships that we have on the Pro-Am side, which there's a filtering process that comes up. And we've been trying to design the sport, just like all the other pyramid structures in stick and ball and other motorsports, where you have a foundation and you get to the peak. Not the peak has nothing underneath it. And we've always felt that really important, even if it's kind of a pain to manage logistically or to deal with on a cost perspective to run 2 series. And what had kind of come out of that is what we'd recognize is that, wow, okay, if you have 80 competitors on any event weekend for a combined weekend, we're not going to be able to do 2-run qualifying. And we stopped being able to do that. And so, within the past 5 years or so, we had gone to this kind of qualifying format that was a single run plus a secondary run for people that didn't score. There were like multiple variations of that. And what we found from talking to drivers, but also just looking at the competition, is that everybody was dropping down their like levels of pushing it by like say 10 to 15%. So because the incentive to get number 1 in qualifying, and we did add points eventually to this to try to fix that, it became too risky to really go 100%, knowing that you may not have that second lap, or that second lap would limit you in where you could position yourself, in the higher part of the rankings. So, we dealt with this for like 5 years, and we just didn't really see a solve to it other than going back to 2-run qualifying. But the fact that we couldn't go back to 2-run qualifying and also run 2 series at these venues with these sound ordinances, with these time restrictions, without also reducing the field, then it was like, well, what could we do to actually make it, more exciting, more compelling, but, not have to tell, 20% of each field, hey, this is your last year if you don't requalify, because we're moving down to a driver cap count.
Right.
And, that may still be a reality in the future. But, for the time being, we kind of came up with what does everybody like anyways? Everybody likes tandem. Is there a way that we could make tandem, the main part of the weekend and not have any single run qualifying? The carryover from like saying being a good qualifier to being a good tandem driver has some parallels or some overlaps, but there is really a distinction between whether or not you are a top-notch qualifier and whether or not you are a killer in tandem. And there's also a huge difference in how you set up the car for qualifying compared to how you set it up for tandem.
Definitely.
If we were to focus all of our attention on tandem, could we do that? And so that's what we did in the 20th season, after the 20th season in season 21. And the initial iteration we thought was really cool. I thought it was good to great the first 4 rounds, but then it kind of suffered rounds 4 through 8. And what we kind of recognized is that there was very little incentive in the seeding bracket because there was no points attached. And also, in order for you to make it into the top 32, you just needed to win 1 battle. So those subsequent battles, the grade 8, the 4, the finals, they were just more about airtime. But if you're sitting on the precipice of like, I could get more airtime, maybe risk my car, I'm already into the top 32, I'm already in a good position, maybe I'll just stay here and I'll do this battle at 60%, or I won't do the battle at all.
Yeah.
And we started seeing that. So that was the kind of like, how do we fix that going into this year, knowing that we at least had a baseline those first 4 rounds where like it was guns a-blazing in seeding, and we saw some of the best battles I think I've ever seen with the likes of like, Connor and LZ and Manoa as they were making their way through. And also the other thing I think that's really important is that there are a lot of drivers, and in particular in Prospect, that had actually never done a tandem battle in a pro setting, because they never made it from qualifying into top 32. And so, in trying to take the guys that are crushing it, that we know are the top of the top of the heap, and the guys that are trying to make it, how do we make them better? But we have a system that doesn't necessarily allow them to practice tandem in a competition format. And so now that basically forces everybody to do it. You hope that the level kind of adjusts and it becomes more competitive, and then the sport kind of can grow and be much more compelling. So that's a 30,000 foot view. I probably could have boiled that down a little bit more, but it's certainly a complex topic.
No, definitely. I think you hit the nail on the head. You also touched on something that's kind of more relevant to this year's changes, making tandems more exciting, making everything more exciting, really. There's a change in judging criteria. For anybody that's not up to speed, the shortest form of it is, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, you want the lead run to be a more predictable and followable run. Is there more to it than that?
I wouldn't say that is like new in the sense that it didn't exist before.
Right.
I think the way that so if you just look at the text that's in the rule book, you're not going to see anything that says, hey guys, last year this, and this year there's a greater emphasis on the lead driver. There's always been an emphasis on the lead and chase driver responsibilities, but I think the where the sport is right now is that the lead driver is incredibly important in what the chase can do. And so, if the lead isn't doing a great job, it's unlikely that the chase is going to look good as well. Like if he's closing all of the pockets, or he's not reaching out to the outside zone, or he's dropping a bunch of tires and then, pulling a gap. And that can be something that, psychologically or even kind of subconsciously seeps into a driver, because there's this natural kind of inclination to be like, if I have separation, that means I'm doing better. And I think what the judges are trying to do is enforce the fact that look, the separation is a thing, but it's only a thing if you're actually going out all the way to the outside zones and following the right line and
Right.
maxing out the angle as best you possibly can. So we did see, I think in a number of instances, they made very specific kind of judgments on the Long Beach course, and they'll carry this over to other events where they say, if you cut the line right here, we are going to ding it greater than we had in the past, because when we go back, and like what we do in our post-event stuff is we go back and we analyze, from all the telemetry data that we have and all of the battles that we want to kind of use as a case study. What they were starting to see is that there are places on the course where certain drivers would, cut it early or take a tight line. And if it was at the beginning of the run, you would have this separation that would occur. And so what you get from that is you just get a decreased entertainment value to the fans. And so the balance of trying to give the fans the best possible show is also tied to what we want the lead driver to do. And so while there may not be a specific provision in there that says, hey, the lead driver is getting, holistically treated differently, there are these emphases that are occurring on the responsibility of the lead in specific examples, at each track.
Cool.
Yeah, and one thing we were talking about, the seating bracket, I think you guys implemented one more times this season, whereas last year there were no one more times in the seating bracket. And I think I'm sure that happened because there were some tight battles, as you said, some amazing battles in the seating brackets last year, and I guess it was really hard to make a decision when there's no one more times.
It's partially that. It's also because we kind of did the opposite thing that we intended to do. And that's not very descriptive, so let me unpack that. In the old, qualifying days, even the 1+1, but in particular the 2 runs, I mean, we were sitting down sometimes doing 3.5, 4 hours, sometimes 4.5 hour qualifying sessions. And by that time, a lot of us are like about ready to black out. And the fans were seeing that too. Oh my gosh, qualifying so boring. The driver's saying, oh, qualifying so boring. So that was one of the motivational factors of looking at trying to change it. What ended up happening is we said, okay, we're going to go to tandem. We're going to do the time calculations on how it's going to work. And we think in order to get it to a 2 to 2.5 hour time slot, which is like, that's where we want to be. And that's where we kind of need to be to keep the entertainment value and also to be consistent with other broadcasts. We'll do a top 16. Top 16s can generally run, 2.5 to 3 hours. But what ended up happening in the combination of that, plus we changed our basically our race control. And our new race control guy understood that one of my major, complaints about what we were doing is that there's a kind of like a formula that you need to follow, and also be very, very aware of the predictions that you need to make as a race control person to know how do you, once you get a result and you move on, that the guys have already been in the burnout box and they're ready to go at the line. And there's a lot of things that affect that because you have competition timeouts, and you may have extended replays and things like that. So the race control guy really has to do a superior job of seeing, oh, you know what, I see they're asking for a side-by-side here. And, taking the burnout box into a more structured format. Instead of go into the burnout box as long as you want, each driver has, a maximum of 30 seconds. So now we have a timing that's predictable. And so we went from like 4-hour qualifying to, in some instances where we had drivers that didn't make it to the event, we would have an hour and 45-minute seating.
Wow.
And so that's too fast for us. We want to be in that minimum 2.5 hour preferred seating. And so one way to do that is obviously try to make sure that we encourage everybody to be at the events, which is not something we always control. But we had, at least 4 examples, even outside of Vaughn last year, where drivers just didn't show up. But the other part is you can add incrementally by just having the one more times where they're justified. And so to your point, yes, there were instances where there certainly could have been a one more time. We had to create criteria in order to address this might have been a one more time in years past. Once you get into a place where it might have been a one more time, what criteria do you have at your disposal to say at driver A1 versus driver B? And that was kind of like where the emphasis on the better lead came into play, because you're not dealing with something in front of you. So all of these things, they always have a tangential relationship to something else, to something else, to something else, to something else in infinity. That's why it's challenging to be concise about how these things function, because the format is tied to the fact that we have 2 series, which is tied to the fact that we have a Pro-Am, which is tied to the fact that some Pro-Am drivers come up and how we do licensing and da-da-da-da-da. So there's layers of complexity to it that tell the entire story. If you tell part of the story, you'll be able to get the picture, but you'll be missing some of it when you're saying, well, how come they don't do this versus that, in trying to unpack the way these things work.
I think people don't appreciate how much, just the way you explain it for race control, how much work goes into an event. People just watching, they're like, oh, there's a little break here, it's a bit long, but they don't realize how much work goes into hosting an event like this, and having a live stream like you guys have is intense. It's pretty crazy.
It's obscene. I mean, it is crazy, like the stuff that people don't see. I mean, you can imagine, let's just say like a result is, people are like, where's the result? Where's the result? And then the replays have stopped. What's going on there? Well, there could be a lot of things going on there. There could be a spotter coming over and, saying something to race control, and race control's holding his hand up. Hey, please, I need to address this. This could be an emergency real quick. Or he's getting a radio transmission in. Or, we lost the hard line from the truck to the pads that the guys use. Or, somebody needed to make an adjustment in, what they wanted to do on their score. It's not always the judges just sitting there being like, I can't make up my mind. A lot of times they're putting in their scores pretty early, but there's a lot of other things happening in the peripheral, because we don't want to put up a result only to have to either adjust or change it or whatever, that then would affect like the credibility of things. So yes, there's so much complexity to it. It's crazy what goes on behind scenes.
So this weekend, you dropped the news about round 8 being back in Long Beach. What does it mean for you to be back? Like, I know Long Beach is where your offices are, and I think it's going to be a cool event. The fact that it's a standalone and not because it's, next or this weekend is the Grand Prix coming up, and now the round 8 is only going to be Formula Drift. How much more work is it going to be setting up for that event?
I mean, I think it's going to be like a lot. Because we're very blessed in the sense that when we go down to Long Beach, we're putting on the decorations on something that already exists, as if it was like a static venue, like any of the other events that we go to, and that's not going to be the case here. So this opportunity, like going back to the complexity of it, is when we found out. And obviously we'd been criticized for years about saying Irwindale's leaving, it's not leaving, whatever, nothing under our control. I mean, I remember a year that we actually had an event booked at Las Vegas. And then Irwindale came back online because they were not able to go through with the original sell to then, smash it and put up warehouses or whatever. And they had a guy come in and sign a 5-year lease. And so we moved our scheduled event from Vegas back to Irwindale. And, it's been like that for a long time. We knew that this year, it was the 5th year of the lease, which was the last year, and that the likelihood was they were not going to continue it. But it had not been in the public domain that it was going away. We basically were told, like the week of the event, that it was going to go away, but we weren't supposed to say anything publicly. And it also still wasn't like 100%, as a lot of things within that involve government are not, right? Like there's always going to be some thing and some person and some agency that has to sign off on something, and maybe it gets delayed or whatever. I mean, they were talking about like even if they sold it, there might be a 1-year delay where they had to sit and wait for the environmental impact report to come back, which is what happened the last time around. And so we kind of quietly told the athletes, like, hey, you should really just try to get the most out of this weekend that you can, because this is probably it, without saying it, And backloading that, we had been working on, like, what do we do to, replace Irwindale? And there are certain, like, kind of non-starters for us. Like, I think one of the things that people kind of miss a little bit is that, the teams have essentially motivated us to make sure that we understand that a routing program that has the least amount of miles, that doesn't involve a zigzag across the country, is incredibly important for them.
True.
To hello?
Yeah.
Oh, so for some reason I lost you for a second. Is incredibly important for them, to manage their budgets, right? So if we go from Long Beach to Atlanta, back to Seattle, to, back to the East Coast, it's not going to work. And then the other consideration is, we kind of have to follow the weather almanac, right? We can't go to Vegas in August and do a daytime event and be like, oh, this is going to be really comfortable for everybody.
No.
So we knew that, we had like these 3 things in mind. It had to be in California. We wanted to try for it to be an actual replacement for Irwindale. And then it couldn't be a one and done. Now, when you do that, you whittle down the possibilities to a very narrow window. And in fact, Long Beach 2 wasn't even in our mind frame. It was only until like we were like, dude, what the hell are we gonna do? That this kind of popped up, and it was really motivated by the Grand Prix understanding that we were in a pinch, and them knowing that the city loves having young people come into the city. Our events are always like very calm and not crazy, but all the kids and people that come they have such a good time, and there's a huge economic impact that leads into the Grand Prix. And so that's how the dialogue started. But now it was like, okay, well, how do we do this on our own? How do we bring in 5 football fields worth of K-rail and catch fence and grandstands and this and that, and not crush the business? And so that process over the past 6 months has been trying to figure that out, and it's definitely going to be way more complex and probably the hardest thing that we'll ever have to do relative to other events, even Long Beach. But we think it's important because this is where we're from. This is where you do not have governments or bodies that control things publicly saying and supporting a sport like drifting. I mean, people will let you rent their venue, but you don't get an actual city that says drifting is very important to us to the extent that we will pour streets down for you. We'll take you over to the Queen Mary. The police department really loves all your drivers. I bring my kids to the event. Like, that just doesn't happen. I mean, in fact, we've been like the redheaded stepchild of motorsports for like 20 years. So the fact that we have a city that has embraced it is like so big for the sport. I think people miss that a little bit. And that's the only reason why it's occurring, is that they are willing to also invest in this idea that there can be a standalone event in the city of Long Beach that essentially replaces Irwindale.
So if this goes off without a hitch, is it safe to call it the new House of Drift?
Well, that's why, like, in my speech, I was trying to figure out how to say that. I mean, the House of Drift, the coinage of that, was because, not necessarily because of FD. Certainly, like, we were the biggest drifting event to go there, but there were so many things drifting related that happened at Irwindale, public and non-public. We did all of our tire testing there, or a lot of it. We did all of our Thursday night drifts there. There was drift days there. There were pro-ams there. We did tons of specialty events during COVID. We did this whole recorded competition with all of our drivers. And so the House of Drift is like, because it had housed drifting in the community, and the sport had really kind of taken its roots from Japan into Southern California and then spread outwards. And so, I don't know that you can replace something like that, because there's not really a venue where you have this kind of totalizing type environment where people can do all the things that I just mentioned. However, there is a wonderful heritage of drifting in the city of Long Beach, from the port to the fact that every single car that we've ever shipped comes in and out of that area. We did the World Championship there, where we first drifted in demonstration format on the Grand Prix in 2006 with like Reese Millen and Taniguchi and stuff like that. So like the history of it is super compelling. And as of 2009, of us having our own event and being involved in Media Day and leading up to the Grand Prix, we've been able to like develop these relationships, and people have been so supportive of what we're doing and have gone the extra mile, to where if we were trying to do something like this by ourselves, like go to Angel Stadium or Dodger Stadium and build it out and rent, we just wouldn't be able to do it. It's just like, that's not where the sport or the business is at. But if you have a sympathetic partner that understands that you're going to need some help from Public Works, Police, Fire, all the production equipment, shutting down city streets and the permitting and all that kind of stuff, then all of a sudden the reality of that starts to become plausible. And so as we kind of saw that its plausibility was going to like, hey, this could actually happen, it really felt like we had to do it. And the question is going to be whether or not it's a long-term sustainable thing, or it's something that is going to be, too risky for us. But at the current moment right now, I think we're all like more in the positive camp than the like, hey, this is going to crush the business if we fail or whatever.
But it was, what I found funny is on the Facebook page, Maximum Driftcast, I think it's called, all the people saying, no, it's going to be Kern Speedway. No, it's going to be at this. It was pretty funny to see all the different options that people had going through their brain.
And kind of pulling out the one that I don't think anybody saw coming, which is cool.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So this was one of those things that we, there's some leaky faucets that happen.
There always is.
Even in our own office. And I do have to give respect to the past team, because they were massively protective of this as we were like putting together the event guide and trying to, figure out how to do that or whatever. But, I always have like these little kind of ways where like, I'll try to figure out who's doing the leaking. Not necessarily my office, but, I would tell some people, hey, it's probably going to be this, and then tell somebody else it's going to be that and be that. And once I hear that get into the public domain, I'm like, oh, that's the leaker right there. Now I know not to tell you.
That's hilarious.
But we kept it pretty under wraps, because because it involves all of these things that are much bigger than us, we didn't necessarily want an outside force to be like put pressure on anybody to say, hey, this is, you know, another weekend where you're closing a street or whatever the case may be, and you know, there to become a challenge or a problem, and that could happen if all of a sudden stuff started leaking out that either A, wasn't true, or that, you know, made it so that it became a topic of conversation. So keeping the lid on it was really important. Once we got to like the last week, people really started to kind of find out about the generalities of it, and then we were able to take it home. But we tried to keep the lid on it as best we could.
I think it was pretty secretive. And
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, we have a funny comment. Someone paid $5 to leave this in our comments, so it's for you. True or false? Ryan Sage won a car on The Price is Right, and did he hang out with Bob Barker?
That is true.
No way.
What? On The Price is Right. Ironically, if that didn't happen, you know, I was talking about, you know, this is affected by this, is affected by this, the chain of causation, all the
Little
things.
butterfly effect.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine that I would actually be doing what I'm doing right now had that not happened.
That's so crazy.
When I didn't, you know, hang out with Bob Barker is kind of loose there. I mean, he definitely looked kind of crazy up close because it's so bright up there, and like he had crazy makeup on. But you know, I went there with a friend of mine, and it was because I was in a rebellious state as I was, you know, graduating high school. My parents were like, "What are you going to do with your life?" and all this kind of stuff. And I would always joke and be like, "I'm going to go on a game show and, you know, win money and I'll be fine." And so we went down there one day, and we got on, and I got on, and I won the showcase to get up there. Blah blah blah. And I ended up winning the car. I took that money, I sold it, I paid the taxes, and then I moved to Lake Tahoe to like pursue snowboarding. Was the first thing that I did out of high school.
Nice.
And I met the guy that I ended up working with down here in Southern California that started my path into the industry.
Come on.
A chairlift. Literally sat down next to him on a chairlift. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting story, but that is true.
Dude, that is, if that's not written in the stars, I don't know what is. That was destined to be.
That's everything happens for a reason.
That's what
crazy.
You know what? I think actually, I don't know. There may be. I don't really post a lot on social media, but there may be in one of the very early videos on my Instagram. I think there's a clip of it on there.
What car was it? What did you win?
I was gonna ask the same thing.
It was a Ford Aerostar.
Oh man.
Oh God! Oh, you should have kept it. Oh no!
Wow. Well, Ryan, thank you very much for taking the time out in your day to come talk with us. I don't know if you guys want to add anything.
No, dude, it was a pleasure as always. Really appreciate you shedding some light on some of the newer stuff and some of the things, you know, people don't see when they're watching this action-packed, adrenaline-filled broadcast. They may not appreciate the effort and work that goes into a production like that.
Yeah,
so
they might never know that the president of Formula Drift wears a bluey shirt. So.
You can tell I have a 1-year-old daughter.
Yeah, definitely.
And hopefully we'll be seeing.
I mean, the pleasure's all mine. You guys, thanks so much. It was a really great time and awesome questions, and so I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be seeing you in New Jersey because we have the rally to New Jersey.
Yeah,
with
we're
PASMAG.
gonna drive down there. See you soon.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you very much.
See you, man.
All right, that was fun.
That was a good call.
Yeah.
Dude, that Price is Right thing is actually
That's
insane.
crazy.
What?
That's one of the
That's
coolest
crazy.
stories in motorsports.
The second time I went to LA, 2014, I was going to The Price is Right.
Come on.
And I was with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and as we were driving there, we read in the rules that you had to have closed shoes. You couldn't have like flip-flops or anything. And she was wearing flip-flops. And I had told her to bring in whatever, so we had to stop at a store. She bought shoes quickly, get in the line up. They shut the line.
No way.
Right at
No
us.
way.
Oh,
I was like,
I thought this was going to end with you going in, getting on stage, and winning a car or something.
no, unfortunately. You know what? If I probably would have won a car.
Dude, it's hard enough to get onto the show, but then, you know, go all the way and win a car.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Did you guys ever see the episode of How I Met Your Mother? That Neil Patrick Harris, he thinks that his father is Bob Barker.
my
oh yeah.
And he ends up winning everything, but like he doesn't care about winning everything. He just wants
to meet Bob Barker.
pretty good one. So, next topic, LZ World Tour,
Yes.
New Jersey.
Looked like a big one, too.
It was awesome. Like, I drove down there. I wasn't competing or anything, but I just drove
Just
down
for
there.
fun?
Just for fun. Well, Luke told me he was competing, and I
we
said
see
I'd
some
go
local
give him-
homies.
So actually, you would think that this is Grant chasing Mike Martino, but it's actually Luke Fink driving
In Grant's car?
Yeah,
That checks out.
because he was driving. He had a Corvette from Garage. Oh, I forget the name of the shop now. But the Corvette, the clutch was slipping and everything. So then the Knapp family lent Luke their 1 Series BMW. He did
Oh my
like 2
gosh.
laps, broken axle.
Oh no.
so yeah, he jumped into Grant's car for qualifying. And
I think Grant owed Fink from the first Toronto
Yes.
one because he gave up the vet to him after a mechanical failure. So hell yeah,
Exactly.
cool to see that come around full circle.
Yeah, so Luke actually qualified 14th, and only the top 13 make it on
God damn
automatic.
it.
So he had to do the whole competition. There's Luke. Yeah, but man, amazing driving. Lots
Hell
of
yeah.
people drove. Amazing. And the layout, like I was there, and I really wanted to drive. That
Yeah.
layout looks like so much
That
fun.
street course there is very cool.
Yeah.
It looks fun.
Yeah, it was a really cool event. It was a really cold event. It was
Looked like it.
freezing, especially on the Sunday.
Mm.
But yeah, it was definitely fun, and I really hope they
Ooh,
they go
dirt
back.
drops.
Oh yeah, it was a fun event. And on the Saturday night, we were all at the bar that they have. There's a bar at the racetrack, like on the edge of the
Oh,
road
that's
course track.
sick.
Yeah, Smoky Pete's, I think. Sneaky Pete's. Something.
Sneaky Pete's.
Sneaky Pete's.
Love it.
Yeah, we're all there having pizza, listening to some emo music, and then
Oh,
somebody
so
screamed,
nice.
"We're going to jump jeeps in the sand pit!" And everybody just
they
started
did?
like running and leaving in their pickup trucks. I took my electric scooter, and somebody stopped next to me, one of Luke's friends, and he's like, "What are you doing? You can't make it down there with your electric scooter." So Tommy Lemaire grabbed my electric scooter, put it in his truck. I jumped in the side by side, and we went
Oh, that's
jumping jeeps and jumping
Nice.
side by sides. It was pretty intense.
Why is Tom's engine always out at an event?
That's not Tom.
Oh, it's not his?
It's I forget whose car it was.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it wasn't Tom's. But it was a fun event.
Hell yeah.
It was definitely a fun
I'm a
event.
big English Town fan in general. It's just so cool.
Yeah, and it's such an easy drive. Like for me, driving from Montreal to
Oh,
English
yeah.
Town is like 6 hours.
That's pretty good.
It's like super easy.
And it's
quick.
like 8.
yeah,
here?
Toronto. I think
Yeah.
it's
8-ish and
Yeah.
then some.
unless your car breaks down during a rally.
Is this your footage? Is this
This
covered?
beginning was my footage. This is actually
Oh, okay.
the Adam Elsie's video. T-Pain is getting much better. He's
I
progressing
see that.
a lot.
It's crazy, man.
And it's not like for somebody with not a lot of experience to drive in front of a crowd like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not easy.
Alongside pro or borderline pro drivers,
Yeah.
nonetheless.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And next on the subject, I went a couple of weeks prior to the LZ World Tour. I went to FuelFest in West Palm Beach.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And
Almost forgot.
big change in weather. It was a lot warmer.
Yeah, that's nice.
A lot warmer, but it was a fun event. I got to interview Cody Walker, which hopefully we'll see the interview. Well, we could see it on
Oh,
screen.
hey, there it
Oh,
is.
sick.
Yeah.
Whose
Well,
sick little truck is that?
yeah.
What is that? Is that a Ranger?
That's a
No.
Datsun,
That was,
baby.
yeah.
Oh, that's a Datsun. Yeah, you're right. The
Well,
swoop.
actually, was it a Sunny? He told me, but I forget what it was exactly. But it was really nice.
Is that his?
No.
was
He
gonna
was
say,
just
what a
walking.
gem.
I grabbed him as he was walking around checking out the cars.
Nice.
But yeah, we had a pretty good discussion talking about FuelFest, and it's growing a lot in the past couple of years. It's been getting bigger. They have one in Tokyo, I think.
Yeah. I kind of put them in that like upper echelon of like it's not only a car show. There's like a festival atmosphere. Like things are
Yes.
happening at this
Yeah.
event all the time. Which
Yeah,
is
there
really
was-
Like
cool.
live music and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't even know Nick Hogan, who's Hulk Hogan's son, is like
Yeah.
a DJ. He was actually
Are you
DJing
serious?
at
What?
FuelFest. Yeah.
He's like following in Shaq's footsteps. That's so crazy.
He's also a JDM importer for like many years. So.
Yeah, they had a bunch of Supras. They
Yes.
had
A bunch
I
of
think
legal
like
issues.
4 or 5 Supras at one point.
If people don't know, he was actually a drifter.
Yeah, in the green Supra, right? Or
Uh,
in something of a Supra.
Well, for a while, he was driving a Viper. Like, he got tips and tricks, and I think he even drove Sam Hubinette's Viper
Crazy.
at one point.
What?
Yeah, there's footage of him driving at Irwindale. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
We have a comment in the chat. It says, "This episode makes me want to quit my job and start a drifting career."
It's a trap.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Like, if there's anything about drifting, if people ask me, like, how to, like, drift for fun. Do you like,
Get
cheapest way possible.
Get an E36, get a 350, get a 370. Just do basic stuff and just have fun.
That seems fair.
Yeah.
Do not go further than that. As much as it could look attractive,
Seat time's the most important thing.
Yes, 100%. And nowadays, get a sim.
Was that all
Yeah.
FuelFest footage? That looked really nice.
Yeah, that's my footage.
Good quality. Good quality stuff.
Thank you. I didn't even edit that video for my personal vlog yet. But yeah, no, honestly, it was really fun. And one thing I mentioned to Cody is, you guys are traveling across the world doing events. Is there going to be Canada added to the list at one point?
Right.
Hopefully.
He said that it's actually in the discussions.
Let's go.
Ooh.
He didn't give me
That'll be
any
exciting.
details, but he says, we know the car scene in Canada is huge. The fans are great. And, we saw it with the LZ World Tour in
Right.
Cayuga and iCar last year. It was packed. I think there could be great success for
That's exciting.
a Fuel Fest event in Canada.
Chalk it up as a potential rally destination.
That would be sick.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll hit him up. We'll hit him
Very
up for
cool.
that. Yeah. So, yeah, that was fun.
That's wicked.
I
Now, for anyone out there trying to drift,
Exactly. That question was perfect timing. So,
I've been waiting for this all podcast. So we do have a segment called Drift Tips for Dummies. This is where, you're going to give us some of your tips and tricks.
who are these dummies in question?
Who's the dummy today? Well, I think he might be sitting at this table.
Is this one where
As
you
the
hit the
clip
wall?
rolls.
This is not the one where I hit the wall, but I just wanted to get some tips and tricks on how I can improve my driving.
Carefully hidden pedals and steering wheel to avoid the in-depth look.
Yeah, so
looking at this quickly, now it's hard to. I don't have any sound. Oh my
Oh
god!
my god.
Your car seems gripped up in the front. It always seems like it wants to come back. That could be multiple things. It's hard to know not being there live and knowing what your car setup is. It could be, if the car's coming back street, it could be your wheel speed is matching the speed that you're actually traveling, which means you got to go up a gear, but also depends on your power.
yeah.
So
Usually if I'm in third gear, I'm nowhere near like the power
band, yeah.
the power band. So it's like usually I have to keep it in second, but then, with all these G35s, 350s,
Yeah.
they're always in third gear and they can slide no problem. And so I'm either holding up the line, or if I'm trying to tandem with my buddies, I am like miles behind them. So
This is actually, you're traveling pretty fast.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that you're in third gear right now? Or second?
this is second.
So that's probably the issue is your limiter and second gear is very, very close to the speed that you're actually traveling at. So the rear just wants to grip up.
Oh.
So one thing you could try doing is try running third and
Big old clutch kick.
or
Multiple
air up your rear
clutch
tires. Like what tire pressure you're running in the rear.
Oh, yeah. Usually I run 30 to 35.
you
and
could,
just
you
keep
could put
it
more.
normal.
And what tire size? Like a 215, 225?
Yeah, 215s in the rear.
Okay.
215s in the rear.
Yeah, that makes sense. You could try airing it up a bit just so it's a bit less sticky in the rear. But another thing that even I learned in the past couple of years where Luke Fink told me, he says, steer with your throttle and not with your front wheels.
Yeah.
Which is a bit odd when you first hear it.
Because I've been doing a lot of steering inputs in this video, even
Yeah.
watching it back. Like this is footage from 2022, so
Okay.
a little whiles back. But looking back at it, it's like, wow, yeah, I was doing way too many inputs, jerking it more than it needed to.
That's usually with somebody who starts drifting, they'll do a lot of corrections.
Looks
Yeah.
very panicky.
Yeah.
Like,
And
whoa.
If you watch somebody with more experience, it's like super smooth. Like I learned by drifting by going passenger with Miro Ovcharik, who drove FD in DMCC, and he is like the smoothest driver in the world. Like I'd probably like sip coffee that's right on the edge
That's
of
crazy.
drifting, and like super calm, and so like less steering inputs, and modulating more with your throttle and yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I can do that so much easier when it's wet. Because
Yeah.
then you can like
like-
throttle. It's so much easier.
It's more slow motion.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
It's just-
absolutely.
when I'm gripped up, I think what you were saying with too much grip in the front and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it was, I wasn't expecting it to hit me that fast or the car to jerk you that fast.
Yeah.
And then you're relying on your reaction time.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because everybody has their styles. Everybody has their ways of setting up a vehicle. Like I know
Chelsea Denofa, even Adam, they run like crazy tire pressure in the front. They run like low grip up front.
Yeah,
like
Adam runs like 15 to 20 sometimes, right?
No, up front he'll run like 45 psi in his tires.
That's wild.
Yeah, even Chelsea Denofa on YouTube a couple of years ago did a video proving that you don't need front grip. He took like spare skinnies off a car and mounted it up front on an E36.
Wow.
And was just like throwing backies and everything.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, because when I first started off drifting, I think one of the biggest improvements that helped me out was actually buying grippy front tires. Because before that, I was just, dumpster diving, getting whatever I had, whatever we could find. And then when I switched to grippier front tires, it made the world of difference for me.
Yeah.
But I guess once you get to a certain point, once you expect...
It's also, I guess, every driver likes something different. Like I run like 235s up front, like a good sticky tire at like, I don't know, 30 PSI. And that's what I'm comfortable with. But I guess it's playing with the grips, front versus rear. And nowadays it's more rear grip than it is front grip.
Yeah, what is the benefit of lowering your front grip?
I think it's because you could scrub more of the front end, like especially if, not only doing backward entries, but like I think it comes back to what Luke Feng said, and to steer with your rear wheels versus your front. Like, yeah, you want more angle, mash the throttle more.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
But, there's that, and I think one good tip, which I should even take myself, is use less of the e-brake. An e-brake is such a good tool, but it's also a crutch. Like as soon as you don't feel comfortable, it's a bit like left foot braking. A lot of times when you're coming fast or you're in a bank or whatever, you're gonna left foot brake a lot. And I was sending videos to Luke during practice at DMCC round 2, I think, and he's like, dude, get your foot off the brake. Stop being a pussy. Sorry. Get your foot off the brake, and I did manage to fix that the next day. But yeah, so e-brake is a good tool, but don't use it too much.
Yeah, thankfully my e-brake was always like my parking brake was ruined when I got the car.
It's a good way to start, actually.
All of this, yeah, thankfully. Like I have a lot of buddies that compete as well. Like shout out Chris. He's the one that will rip into you if he sees an e-brake in your car, like a Hydra or anything like that. So he always recommends, like he has one now because he competes, and for competition spec you need it.
Yeah, sometimes you need to
slow down.
Slow down or enter with an e-brake depending on the track layout.
But yeah, this is all done without e-brake and pretty much just like riding second gear in red line and trying to just flick it.
Yeah, so like I said before, I think it's really that your wheel speed is matching the speed that you're traveling. Like there was a layout that we did in DMCC 2 years ago. It was the first time we were entering. I think like the top speed was like 170 kilometers an hour. I had never initiated in fourth gear, and at first I was trying to do it in third gear, and like the car was just squiggling back and forth because I was like on the limiter non-stop in third gear. So I'm like, I gotta mash fourth gear, but my gearing ratio was a bit long. It was luckily I had a V8, I have an LS, so I was able to use that torque. But see, that's an example of a layout that you absolutely need an e-brake because you need to scrub speed on the e-brake before getting back on the throttle.
Yeah, I was also thinking of maybe changing out like diff ratios and something like that.
Yeah.
So maybe I could be in third gear.
Absolutely.
And then hit the power band. But
yeah, I would put something a bit shorter so you could be in third.
Yeah. So maybe some things to work on, but
yeah, season's starting, man. Get that diff. Hit up Marketplace.
Yeah, I'm gonna be on Facebook Marketplace tonight.
Speaking of the season starting, you're in the midst of a BMW E36 build, in addition to the freshly painted 240 that you also have somewhere else,
and is also S14 drift build.
That's right.
But we'll save that for another episode. But yeah, I've actually had it for a year already. I'm actually late on it, but we are building with PASMAG. We are building an E36. It's an M package. It's a convertible. I know that's controversial. A lot of people.
It's a fun spec.
I love convertibles, and I've always wanted to drift a convertible. On a nice day, pop the roof down, get all the wind.
Hell yeah.
But at the same time, you'll be sitting in the start line with the sun smacking on your shoulders. But
no escape from the exhaust fumes whatsoever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But the whole idea behind this build is so many times I hear at drift events, like people that, they like watching drifting, but they're not like really into drifting. They're like, oh, I'd love to learn how to drift, but I don't have the $50,000, $60,000 that it costs to build a car. And it's like, no, dude, that's like the worst mentality ever.
Yeah,
Like,
don't
you-
overbuild a car to learn.
No, like first of all, you're gonna crash your first car. You are going to crash your first car.
You will.
So you're better
Just
off.
ask our John.
We
Get-
need the clip of you running into the wall.
No.
I thought we were
No,
gonna
we
play
don't
that.
need that.
But, listen, even the best of drivers crash.
Exactly.
So, you know, what I recommend is getting something cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, clean. You know, here it's hard to find a car with no rust.
Naturally.
So this car luckily was from the States in Florida. So
Nice.
there's still a couple little spots of
Same
rust.
with my
but
new 240.
there
Love
you-
it.
There you go.
Something mass produced.
Yeah. So like, you know, nowadays E36, E46, I think is the best bang for buck.
Even still, eh?
Yeah, 350Z, 370. I see 370s have been coming down. Those are good chassis. Even I see a lot of people drifting Mustangs,
Yep.
like a new Edge Mustang. I've already had one, and I think they take a lot more work. You know, it's not independent rear suspension; it's a live axle. So,
But the FRS, you get that thing from the factory and just let her
yeah,
hang.
yeah. So like, the idea of this build is, you know, showing that you could take a cheap car, do strict minimum, and have loads of fun and
Sick.
develop your drifting skills with not a lot.
Love
you know,
that.
The idea of this car is we're going to do coilovers, obviously. We're going to do a small angle kit, which is not necessary, but, you know, it's a bit more fun.
It helps. When
Yeah.
you have the experience. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna benefit you.
You know, power-wise, we're just doing like bolt-ons, like just exhaust, intake, and that's pretty much, maybe just like a small tune. Good seats, something
Love
that
the
holds you.
green.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. So yeah, good
Don't start.
good seats. One thing about this is, you know, it's a 95, so the bushings are going to be worn out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're also going to be switching up like all the motor mounts, all the
Stiffen it up a little
yeah,
bit.
Yeah, yeah. Update
Street
everything.
car still at the end of the day?
Yes, I want it to stay a street
Hell
car.
yeah.
And because I was saying, you know what? If I go drifting at iCar with my S14 competition car, it's expensive. That's the thing. It's
Yeah,
a
you're
competition.
trailering it there. You're
But
losing
even just
tires.
Tires, exactly. That's what I miss about having a low power car is showing up with like 2 or 4 tires to the event,
Right.
and you're good for the day. Whereas my S14, I'll go out and do 4 laps and the tires are done. So what's cool about leaving it road legal is I could tell my girlfriend, hey, jump in the BMW. I'm going to tow the S14, and then
Nice.
one outing in the S14, then just jump in the
when
Beamer
the tires
and
run
drive.
out on one.
Yeah, just lap in the BMW.
That's
and
great.
Then, yeah. So
You gonna put a cage on it then, or just a roll bar?
most racetracks for convertibles, it is mandatory to have
you
a
need
roll
something.
cage. At least like a I'm not sure if it's roll bar or roll cage, but obviously I'll put like a 4-point
Okay.
Yeah.
roll cage, you know, just to be safe.
Yeah.
Safety first.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I think it's gonna be a cool car. It'd be fun to have it pretty much ready to go for the rally. Maybe somebody can
Ooh.
drive
Wow.
it down from PASMAG, because I'll be bringing down the
Maybe
S14.
somebody's car won't be finished.
Yeah, there you go. At least you have a
It's
backup.
green. It's green already.
Yeah, I still get to drive a green car. This is a perfect.
With the roof
fit.
down.
Nice.
Oh,
How great is
dude.
that? Yeah. Yeah. So no, I think it's gonna be a fun project. So stay tuned. I've got a bunch of parts already. Like we have good partners like Tech 53, Just Engineering, ISR hooked us up with the exhaust. True
Yeah.
Focus Fab.
Yeah, peep the unboxing somewhere
Yeah.
on PASMAG's YouTube channel.
Yeah. Hopefully we receive the coilovers soon.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we could get started on this car like ASAP.
That's so
Exciting.
exciting.
Yeah.
Cheap, fun drift cars, not to
Hell
be
yeah.
discounted.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we went around everything we had to talk about for the first episode of Smoke Signals.
Hell yeah, dude, it was great. I
Yeah.
enjoyed this a lot.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Special
Definitely
guests, cool events,
Yeah.
fun car build locally.
Yeah,
locally
great way to
enough.
start it off. That
Yeah.
was sick.
One send off.
Big bang.
Dude, thanks for coming by to the studio, man. It's
Thank
it's
you.
always a pleasure. It's been a minute. I think the last time we were here was like pre LZ World Tour.
No, I was actually here. I had I was at the CMA Network show. It's like a 12-volt mobile electronic
yeah, yeah.
show because I work for Automobility, and every year we have a show in Toronto. And last year I did the show, came into the studio, filmed a couple of things, and then I flew out to Long Beach
Holy
for
moly.
round 1. This year they moved it forward a week, so I missed it, unfortunately.
Oh, that's a shame.
But yeah, last year I was there, and I was in that little fire with
Little
James Dean.
fire.
Yeah, but no, I'm happy to be here, and it's a lot of fun talking with you guys, and hopefully it'll be
It won't be the last. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
we'll do this again. Even if we have to come to you in Quebec, we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
We'll make it happen. I think we will.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll drive there.
Perfect.
All right, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.